Roswell. Evidence that ufologists were hoping to find among the government's recently declassified files in the case. But this collection of formerly classified files would never have been generated in the first place, except for an event that occurred in 1978, more than 30 years after the Roswell story first hit the headlines. In 1978, Jesse Marcel, one of the officers who recovered the debris from Mac Brazel's ranch, went public for the first time with a new version of the facts. According to the original 1947 reports, the debris he found was nothing more than a handful of balsa wood, plastic, and foil. But in Marcel's new version of the story, he claimed that the debris blanketed an area 3/4 of a mile long and several hundred feet wide. In this updated account, Marcel contradicted the Air Force explanation that the debris was from a downed weather balloon. Instead, he speculated that it could have been evidence of an alien crash landing. UFO researchers immediately caught wind of the story and began to dig deeper. They descended on the town of Roswell and the nearby airfield, tracking down many of the principals and their friends and relatives. A new picture began to emerge. In the updated accounts, the two officers from Roswell Airfield who went out to retrieve the debris were now joined by a platoon of soldiers who set up a blockade and combed the fields, picking up vast amounts of debris that were trucked to Roswell Airfield and kept under the tightest possible security. According to these news stories, massive amounts of debris were airlifted via several large military transports to a secret location. As UFO researchers continued to dig, new witnesses came forward volunteering details of a second crash site, among them Gerald Anderson, who was 5 years old at the time. Anderson told a fantastic tale of a discovery he made with his father and uncle while searching for rocks in the desert outside Socorro, New Mexico, about 200 miles from Roswell. In this videotape, discovered among the newly declassified materials and seen here on television for the first time, Anderson repeated his story to government investigators in 1991.
There was a large silver disc-shaped object was embedded in the side of the ridgeline. I would estimate its size from an adult perspective to be something like 35 feet in diameter. When we got up to it, there were 4 bodies last in.
In Anderson's fantastic story, there were 4 aliens at the crash site, 2 dead, 1 severely injured, 1 ambulatory. He described the aliens as diminutive in size, not more than 4 feet tall, with large heads and long, thin limbs. He remembered their faces as strangely featureless. Then came an even more stunning revelation, this time from a man named Glenn Dennis. In 1947, Dennis was a mortician at the Ballard Funeral Home in Roswell. He recalled driving an injured airman to the hospital at Roswell Airfield shortly after the initial discovery of debris on Brazel's ranch. Inside the hospital, Dennis claimed to have encountered a friend of his, an Air Force nurse by the name of Naomi Maria Self.
Well, she screamed at me, "Glenn, get out as fast as you can," because she says, "You're going to get in a lot of trouble. Get out as fast as you can."
Dennis claimed that he was then confronted by a red-headed Air Force captain and a black sergeant, who threatened him and then escorted him off the base.
He said, "Get this SOB out of here." And then I got mad and told him to go to hell, I was a civilian and all this.
According to Dennis, he arranged to meet the nurse again the next day. In this second encounter, she gave him a graphic and disturbing account of the events that had driven her to hysterics. She said that she had been called into the operating room by doctors who were conducting autopsies on bodies like none she had ever seen before.
They only had two orifices for the nostrils here, and the mouth was under like 1 inch. No teeth, no tongue.
As the nurse described it, the bodies were burned and mutilated, clearly crash victims, and they gave off an overpowering odor that eventually forced doctors to abandon the autopsies.
She was evidently very traumatized. She drew a little picture, apparently, of the body that she had seen, and immediately destroyed it, and kept looking over her shoulder as if people were listening, which they well might have been. And then he tried to get back in touch with her soon after that, and she was gone, shipped out.
These new eyewitness accounts about the events at Roswell fired the public imagination as never before. Books, movies, and television programs about the Roswell case fanned the flames. The Air Force was inundated with questions about the events at Roswell.
As the myth grew, they began to be driven nuts by requests for this kind of information, that kind of information. They wanted desperately to get this all behind them.
The sheer volume of files recently declassified in the Roswell case is a testament to the government's high level of concern. As our story continues, the public outcry about UFO sightings at Roswell forces the government to reveal top-secret projects that were kept hidden for more than 50 years.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially